So I see that we have a few more people joining in, but I think it's time for us to start, and the rest can join in as soon as possible here. So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here this morning and joining our call. I am Elizabeth Whitefield from Business Development within EY Consumer and Retail Sector in the Nordics. And as many of you know by now, during these bi-weekly webinars on Thursday, we explore consumer behaviors, changes and reactions during various stages of this pandemic. But also we present selected solutions and ideas for supporting your businesses during these somewhat unpredictable times, to say the least. And today we are joined by Magnus Jones, a Nordic Innovation Lead at EY, who will discuss how technology can facilitate new business models and also create a more sustainable, valuable and efficient value chain. So looking forward to that. But before handing over, during our 30 minutes today, there is unfortunately not that much time for Q&A, but please write any questions in the chat, and we'll make sure we cover as many as we can, or we will get back to you afterwards. And just so you know, you will also get a recording of this session afterwards to listen back. But we look forward to continue our discussions, of course, after our 30 minutes today. But for now, very welcome, Magnus. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we are going to talk today a bit about a feasibility study that EY carried out together with a Norwegian branch organization called Norwegian Fashion Hub, which is the branch organization for all the fashion industry in Norway. And where we looked into whether or not blockchain could have any benefits towards some of the challenges that they had. But before we start with that, of course, we understand that that's not necessarily everyone are fully updated on the blockchain area and what it is. So in brief, just to get everyone on board here, I will give a very, very high level explanation of what blockchain is. And in its core nature, a blockchain is a non-editable, decentralized database. What does that mean? If we take into comparison to our ordinary database network, where you have multiple parties, and normally you have a database administrator in the middle here. And that person can then control, amend, delete all the documents that are sent back and forth through the network. While in a blockchain, it's the same principles. However, the database administrator in the middle is replaced by an algorithm, a data program, the blockchain, a consensus mechanism that all the participants in the blockchain have agreed to. So it means that when one party transfer one document or send something of a value or whatsoever from one party to the other, we have this ledger that is updated on all the participants. Hence, everyone can read and input data, but they cannot amend and delete the data. Hence, you know that the data is trusted. So if, say, one party here tries to say this is not correct, then the majority of the other, normally 51% of the consensus, can say this is the truth, and hence you cannot cheat the network. You can have public available blockchains that everyone can join, such as the Bitcoin blockchain, as some of you might have heard about, and the Ethereum blockchain. And you can have also private blockchains, which we'll get a bit back to, but then you have to have permission to join it. So that's the high-level explanation of what blockchain is. And hopefully you will understand that it's not that important to understand the technology itself. It's rather important to understand the potential and the use cases of it. In the same way as you guys, you do not care pretty much about how, for example, the TCP/IP protocol works when you send and receive an email or are on the internet. In the same way, blockchain is a protocol. It's an underlying IT infrastructure element that is out there that works in the same way. So hence, you should not care about how the technology works, but rather focuses on the use cases, which we did in this case together with Norwegian Fashion Hub, where we looked into some of the challenges they had and looked into if blockchain could have a benefit towards solving some of them. And within the fashion industry, there are multiple challenges today. First of all, climate gas emissions are huge. The fashion, the fabric industry and the shoe production industry together represents 10% of all global emissions. And when it comes to raw material, one example given, 1 kilogram of cotton takes 10,000 liters of water to produce. And the water usage is not only relating to enormous amounts in the production phase, but also the chemical use of it, i.e., it's said that approximately 20% of all freshwater pollution comes from coloring or dyeing fabrics. So we also have challenges towards working conditions and the wages there, about child labor, etc. Of course, it's also challenges towards sort of the circular economy, the circular solutions here, because within the fashion industry, you have had over the last years quite a huge push towards what's called fast fashion, and that means that it's cheap fashion that goes out there to be consumed at a high level. So if you take one example for Norway, it's said that all Norwegians have approximately 359 garments in their closets, and 1/5 of them is used. So over the last 15 years, this has led to an 80% increase in the textile waste. So it means that we have to do something, or the industry sees that they have to do something about all of these elements. So that's hence why we carried out a feasibility study together with Norwegian Fashion Hub and 2 of its members, Norwegian Rain and Livid Jeans. What we found there was that we had to look into the whole supply chain and try to make it more transparent and more trustworthy in order to fulfill the requirements that we see more and more consumers are looking for, and that's transparency towards it. They have an environmental aspect to it. So what we did was that we took, this is of course a high level perspective of the whole value chain, and this is also an ongoing project, just to having said that. So due to confidentiality, I cannot go into details on all parts, but we will talk high level of the main points of what we are looking into here. So what we have done here is looked into the whole starting process, that a Norwegian firm places an order to a factory, normally in a foreign country, and then we register each step onto a blockchain, so it's not possible to amend that. So we get a full track and trace record of all instances that has happened. So when the fabric is produced, or the shoes whatsoever, it gets could be a QR code, could be a sensor chip, could be lots of different identifications methods, but we use here as an example the QR code. Then it's registered the pickup points from the freight cargo carrier. Then it's registered to the next pickup point of delivery into a branded warehouse, a wholesaler whatsoever. Then to the next pickup point for the cargo carrier, and necessarily into the store, where in the end it's a QR code on the product, so the consumer can scan that and find all information about the history where that garment has come from. So this means that we look into here to try to create a more sustainable raw material production. At this level, we would like to also include sensors and elements where we could measure CO2 emissions and other parameters, also possibly in real time, to get a better overview of the trustworthiness. And also we get to increase the security in general and the reliability towards the data, that it's verified in each step here. So all parties can go back and actually verify each step. And of course, then it gives the consumer a complete clothing cycle history. So when the consumer scans that piece of item, you can get lots of details up there. And this is just one example from one of the participants, Norwegian Rain. So you can scan one of their raincoats and get information that this raincoat has been produced by 80% recycled polyester, it's organic wool, etc., etc. And you can click in and see that it's been woven in Japan, it's been sewed in Poland. So we have a full track record of all the information, and get here a bit more if you want to read about this. So what does this make for us? Is this information then revolutionizing everything here? Is it like the blockchain has solved everything by nature? No, not necessarily, because this information here can be put in by Norwegian Rain or whichever company it is, and they can control it if they are the only one that controls the blockchain. So hence what I normally say is that you should be very skeptical towards blockchains if you do not know where the data, the input comes from. That goes back to the classic of garbage in, garbage out. So what we've seen up until now on lots of blockchain-related projects is that it's one party that puts in all the data into the blockchain, and they also control the whole blockchain because it's a private blockchain. Hence, they control all the so-called nodes. So thereby, we have a challenge. That is why we at EY believe in public blockchains. That means that the data is verified by a public out there, not necessarily that they can read all the data, because that wouldn't be too wise to put out all information onto a blockchain. So hence, that's why we at EY have created something called a zero knowledge proof solution for the public Ethereum blockchain, which we develop on. And that's very complicated. We will not go into detail, but you can think about it, that you have a piece of paper and it's written information on that piece of paper, and we do not put that piece of paper onto the blockchain so everyone can read it, but we just rip off a small piece of the corner of that piece of paper and put that little paper piece onto the blockchain, so everyone can verify that the transaction has happened, but they cannot necessarily see whether or not it's the money amount, the item amount, the description, or whatever. But if someone tries to change something in that document, that little piece of paper, which we call the hash, a digital stamp, do not match that original document anymore. So if members of the blockchain sees that that hash doesn't match of any documents that they can read, they can go in and say, hey, someone has tampered with it. That's the way that we prove this. So we also, in this part, use, of course, lots of other sensors, because it's a very significant element towards this, that it's very important, that it's not only one party that is going to verify this data. So, because it's easy for someone to say, hey, we are a green manufacturer, so hence we will just put our green stamp here and we would have greenwashing. So what we are looking into is to use a digital token, a digital element that follows the whole value chain here from the very first start, from each point to the next one. And on each point here, we can put in data into that token, so it follows it. And we know it's not amendable, so you cannot go and change it. But that's where the important thing is about the input of the data here. So hence, We team up then with third parties who can perform audits from a sustainability level together with our sustainability team at EY. We can merge this up towards various different already existing standards. So we can have other third-party databases being connected towards this token that says, well, we can confirm that this is green, and we can also confirm that this is green, and we can confirm that this is green. In the same way that the cargo courier truck should not have one sensor that measures the temperature or whatever. It should be one sensor in the Europallet, one in the car, one from a third party, and also possibly one from the vendor itself. Hence, then we can measure if it's 1.7, 1.6, 1.8 degrees in the car. And if so, you can say, seems fine. At least I have a double, a triple, a quadruple verification on it. I can trust that more than just one party. That's a very important element to understand how we can actually build the trust into the uneditable information here, so the blockchain actually gives you a value. In addition, the blockchain also gives value here because you have really good reconciliation opportunities that all parties that necessarily need to wait here to receive information about the product here from the senders, from the producer, about pro forma invoices, all such data can be put into the blockchain, so you can limit or restrict the read access to that data. So this party can see that, well, this is the sender, while this sender do not necessarily need to know that this party has been involved, etc. So we can also give access to that the consumer are supposed to see only this step and this step, but not, of course, the customs declarations, which are for internal purposes. So this is definitely what we came to, giving a more transparent, a better traceable, and also increasing the sustainability elements. So that's our core findings towards that blockchain actually have a core value for this. But does this mean that we at EY are only doing this at a conceptual level? No, we have carried out lots of different cases that is implemented and fully working on this area. So among others, at EY, we created the world's first blockchain verified wine. We have carried out projects of food traceability for Carrefour, the French huge grocery store, with tracing origin of chickens, organic lemons, etc. We have traced buffalo mozzarellas, and also we have done this case together with several others. And this one is the world's first frozen product blockchain, which we carried out together with Bofrost, Italian company, which is, among others, fishing in Norway. So in the same principles as with the Fashion Hub, we have gone into all the steps within the value chain and the supply chain to register that, to give value-added information to the consumers and also the parties, the stakeholders within the value chain, so they can extract that. And hopefully you will see a video that is working, because sometimes it's a bit of lack on Teams, but here you can see it's in Italian, but you get the point still. So here you can get the customs declarations information in, as mentioned, for some parties, but you can also have relevant information for consumers. Like here, for example, you can get recipes. So actually the consumer goes in and have a use of it, not only one-time usage scan of this. You can get information about the fishing equipment, the species information, the geolocation as well. So you can actually go in and have a look and see that the fish that has been caught here, that I have, has been caught in Norway at this place at Spjelkavik. Within this vessel, it was also caught. So here it's also an element towards this, that when a consumer uses an app like this, it's not only for information purposes, because lots of these cases that we have developed that is implemented and fully working and running, it's a lot of information that comes from the consumer, i.e. if you are able to have the consent of the consumer, you can track where the consumer scans it, who this person is, etc. There's lots of valuable information that the companies gets here, not only for internal purposes, but also for external purposes, building a community, but also really, really important information about the consumer's behavior. So have that also in mind when it comes to that. This is not only about blockchain itself, it's about the technology and how you can use technology for a good purpose of what you want to achieve here. This is a slide, and I know that, and I will walk you through it. And what this slide is trying to explain is actually how a so-called smart contract works. And why I'm showing this to you is because I think it's important for you to understand how a smart contract actually works, because there's been lots of talks about smart contracts, and they are not necessarily smart by nature or neither legally binding as a contract. So I'm not a huge fan of the terminology, but I will talk you through it so you might understand this a bit better and how we are actually able to use the blockchain technology for that purpose. So all the examples that I have given where it's used blockchains, we also use smart contracts. So in this example, we have a vendor, we have a cargo freight cargo carrier, and a customer. And normally people in the media relate this as we just transfer a digital token, one token of a payment. But we have actually 3 tokens here when we use our smart contract. And that's one token that relates to the product ownership that sits here with the vendor. We have a physical location token that follows the goods. And we have, of course, the payment token here. And when I'm saying this is a system based upon our EY OpsChain platform that is fully integratable towards SAP and other ERP systems. So this is not a standalone product. It's a product that is implemented in a solution that is implemented into your already existing systems and lays there, as you can call it, as a middle layer, as a function to create more efficiency. So what's happening here is rather that in a normal world, if you place an order, you will have people at your back office clearing that order. You will have them to call up the freight cargo carrier, and you will have to wait for the payment. So on this side, the customer have to inspect and see if they have received all the goods. Then they will probably wait for 30, 60, 90, 120 days before they execute the payment. The vendor will not transfer the ownership documents before they have received this. So it's a lot of reconciliation purposes there, which takes a lot of time and also costs companies lots of liquidity money and also back office handling money. So what we have done here is we have added the smart contract function on an ordinary, fully working system in the in the world today. So it means that what we do here with the smart contract, we lock this token up towards the ownership documents, the original documents that lays in the ERP system. Then we have also the payment that is locked up. So the customer cannot say, I will not pay you, and the vendor cannot say, I will not transfer the documents to you. So what is happening here is that the token, the physical location token, follows the freight cargo carrier. And when it is received by the customer, based upon Incoterms, etc., and you can have manual inspections, and you can also have machine inspections. When everything is cleared, then the algorithms is set to say immediately transfer payment to the vendor, and immediately transfer then in the same operation the ownership documents to the customer. Hence, there's no need for reconciliation, and you can save a lot of time and money on this. So this is just one example, high level of how we can apply this at a financial level also, not only for, call it, the benefits of being able to track and trace something either for vendor purposes in the value chain or for the consumers. Another interesting case is this one, and it relates to royalty payments. And it's quite interesting and quite fun because we have been allowed to create software for the software vendor. So we have created a software for Microsoft, and it relates to royalty payments of these Xboxes. So what happens here in the normal world when you acquire a game for your Xbox, say FIFA, the football game. Lots of parties are to receive very small payments. Would call it micropayments, 0.000127 euros, Norwegian crowns whatsoever. How is that dealt with today? Well, it's too small to just transfer it on an ordinary bank transaction, and it would cost too much because the bank would have rounded up to 0.50 because they cannot handle 0.000127.8, which is the royalty right payment that you are entitled to receive. And lots of parties are to receive royalty payments, the football players, the Premiership, the EA Sports developers, all of these, in the same way as the music industries and other branches. So this is dealt with today that lawyers like us are sitting here manually receiving data, getting that in chunks of 1 to 3 months normally. We're sitting there charging 4,000 Norwegian crowns an hour, and we have to drink a cup of coffee because we're not totally sure how to reconcile these numbers. This is, of course, put a bit on the edge, but it's also a lot of truth in there because it's a lot of time spent on reconciling these numbers, and hence the persons who are entitled to receive a royalty payment do not know when they will receive the payment, nor neither how much, because it depends on how many cups of coffee that I drink, which equals 400 euros. So we were thinking, can we make some efficiencies towards this and makes this also more transparent for all the parties involved? Because when we reconcile, we are a trusted third party. And I'm not saying that we are cheating or Microsoft is cheating, but de facto in such a value chain, when only one party is reading the data and accessing the data, it's a lot of cheating. In the same way as within telecom, within roaming, all of this, lots of missing numbers and cheating there. So we wanted to make this transparent, and hence we also then created a blockchain solution so we could reconcile this in a much more efficient way. So now things that we put a benchmark on that took 45 days previously to reconcile, we can do in a couple of seconds or minutes now. And this is fine. We all understand that if you multiply the third-party hours of 400 euros by 45 days, etc., that's an enormous amount. But this is not the core reasons only why Microsoft is looking into this, because they are understanding the principles of the token economy. And that is what is coming now. That means that if you, as a person who has a right to receive a royalty payment, could choose, would you like to receive an instant micropayment of 0.000187 euros for each sale of when FIFA is sold? Or would you like to wait 3, 6, 9, 12 months and do not necessarily know how much you will receive? You will probably say, liquidity matter, it would be good to receive it immediately. But of course now you will have to say, oh, you will have to have an e-wallet that you have to trust Microsoft on a platform. So at the moment we are running this system. It's fully operatable, but we have not included the payment function yet because we are waiting for other solutions like it's out there, like we have heard about Facebook's initiative on Libra payments. We have heard about the central bank digital currencies in China, the euro, the Swedish e-krona, the Norwegian central bank is working on this. When we can get these payments into this, then the parties here can instantly receive the payment, and that's where the real value is. So we at EY, we believe that within 2030, more than half of all new business contracts will be executed by a smart contract, i.e. on a blockchain. And just on the last minute here, I think it's also very important to understand in the world that we are today that we need to think a bit about outside the box and see new virtual opportunities. And in the relation to the Fashion Hub case, we have to take off the pointer, sorry. We have seen that you can think totally new. This is a Norwegian company called Carlings. EY has done nothing to do with the project, but it's just illustrating what we are also thinking about, because they have started to produce virtual clothing. And you say, virtual clothing, why? because you have influencers in the world today that are using this on social media. You have kids who is playing games, which are a huge growing area, that are using typically these clothes that you can take a picture of yourself, you can go into their website, you can choose the garment you want and put it onto that picture of yourself and use that in social media, or buy a skin for a game, a special sword, whatsoever that you can actually use. This is also things that the ordinary, call it industry, that was thinking this could never happen, it could never be relevant. It's very relevant now. And where the blockchain comes in here is where that you can actually verify by a token, a unique digital verification mechanism that this garment, that this sweater is mine. And you can also then trade it for the purposes of more convenience than rather to go out in a market that is existing today. So this is just some example of where the blockchain technology also plays in here. If you're interested to hear more about this, we have huge experience on this area at EY. We have more than 300 core blockchain developers spread all over the world, and we have also great experience in the Nordics with more than 40 people who has an in-depth knowledge in the area. So if you're interested to hear more about this, not only the blockchain part, but actually how you can merge various different technologies into each other, feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you. So by that, I thank you a lot for your attention in the early morning, and wish you all a pleasant day.
Thank you very much, Magnus. And just before wrapping up, I know we have a minute over the time here. We got one question, it might be easy to respond to. Do you see this as a solution also for minerals, for example, 3TG, cobalt, etc.?
Definitely, we have actually done projects on cobalt, and I can give you one example. We have not done it, but Volvo AB, the car, the truck manufacturing, is actually using blockchain for the purpose of tracing cobalt and the origin there. So it's a couple of other projects out there also. So and as mentioned, we at EY have someone, but I cannot unfortunately tell you which client it is.
But we'll be happy to continue the discussions. And thank you very much, Magnus, for sharing these interesting insights. And thank you all for joining. And I'm sure there might come up other questions, but please just contact us and we continue talking about this and supporting your businesses. And as mentioned, you will all get a replay as well of the session. And also, I hope to meet you all again in 2 weeks when we will dig into the area of cybersecurity a bit further. So see you then, but please stay connected and just get back to us with any ideas or thoughts. Thank you very much and have a great week.
Thank you.